Hey guys, it's Morgan from Highland Cycles coming to you with another story time with Morgan. You may have noticed that the ride footage from the race that we talked about, the Oklahoma Gold Rush, is conspicuously missing. Well, I have a nice long story about that, and actually a story about the whole race. So to start off, I lost my GoPro. I lost my Hero 7 Black in the mud that was the race on Saturday. So that's why there's no footage. But let me just walk you through the weekend. It's unfortunate that I don't have any of the footage because some really cool things happened and some really absolutely crazy things happened that I can't even... It's hard to actually describe that race. So let's just talk about how this race went. We got there Thursday night late. Friday morning dawned super cold. I mean, honestly, for Oklahoma, it was probably in the high 30s, low 40s. And actually, anyway, it was cold. So we get out to the track. Everything's kind of frosty and chilly and dew everywhere. The first race was the Supermoto Race. And the Supermoto Race is always kind of a redneck Supermoto anyway. It's not like AMA Supermoto. It's on the road race track, but it goes out through some grass. There's always a little bit of mud and a little bit of craziness, and knobby tires are actually usually the better way to go than actually having Supermoto tires. So we go, we do practice, and the relatively wet section is a complete mud fest. I mean, just mud everywhere. If you're behind anyone, it's in your face. It's just completely out of control. So get through practice, clean everything off. Like, okay, let's go racing. I ended up having a great race. I won my class. I was second overall. It was great. We had a super fun time. Really happy with the way that went. Then Friday night comes. There's motocross. The boys raced. I raced. I did not race well in the motocross. I generally don't because I'm not a moto guy, but had a blast. The course was super wet and sloppy. And all I could think is like, God, I can't believe how these are prepped areas that are normally in really good shape, and they were super sloppy. So we discussed the situation with the boys, and we talked to some guys that are from there, and they're like, the woods where the race is going to happen, they're crazy muddy. So the boys decide they don't want to race the Grand Prix. I don't blame them. They're on mini bikes. And they're seeing these like course workers come out of the woods, and their like bikes are covered. Like, yeah, I don't know. I'm like, yeah, don't worry about it. I'm not going to be out there with you. Fair enough. So Saturday morning is the beginner race, and the kids don't race, so we got there late, relaxed, no problem. I get suited up on Saturday. I'm ready to go. Normally this race goes really well for me. I'm usually in the top 3. Actually, I've been third for like the last 4 years running in the 40 plus category. So I'm feeling really good. Actually, physically, my hip is no good, but honestly, I've been riding pretty well. So I think, maybe I got a chance to win this thing if I really hang it out there and push hard. So we line up. The guy who runs the thing is like, hey guys, careful out there, it's muddy. And I'm like, yeah, no problem. So they start the race. You start straddling your front fender, looking backwards across your bike. Wave the flag, take off. Didn't have a great start, but not horrible. About mid-pack, come around. Anyway, take off. Go through the first part of the race. And what you got to understand, the weather was perfect. It's absolutely drop dead perfect. It was cold, but it's sunny for all of Thursday, all of Friday, Saturday morning sunny, right? And as we're on the pavement, we're coming down this big, long, huge, big, long straight that goes into an off-camber left-hand turn and back up. And there's water seeping out of the pavement. Even after all those days of sun, there's still water coming out of the pavement. And I'm like, on the gas, you're like, oh my gosh. And you go around the turn, I'm like, that's crazy. So you go off, get out of the dirt. The first part of it's great, right? It's kind of up high. Kind of a knoll, so it's in great shape. It's tacky, no dust. Go do the motocross track. It's actually in better shape because they'd run the side-by-sides and the ATVs on it, so they splashed all the water out of it. Go into the woods, and all I can say is it went from really good to really bad really fast. Honestly, it didn't get really bad super fast, But we got into the deep woods, and there was mud like I've never seen before. I don't ride mud because I live in Colorado. We don't really have mud here. And I'm not good at it. And so the struggle bus took off, and I was at the freaking helm, right? I'm driving the struggle bus through the woods. I mean, I'm all over the place, crashing, tipping over on my first lap. I mean, it was not good. But so were so many other people. Everybody was everywhere, passing people. I'm getting past. It's craziness. Come around, get my first lap done. And let me put this in perspective. They don't really ever change the course every year. It's usually the same course with maybe some minor changes. But most years, the laps take between 20 and 22 minutes for me. The pros are usually 18 minutes or, maybe a little less, maybe high 17s for the super fast guys. My first lap was 38 minutes. So I'm 16 minutes off pace. And I didn't know that. I just knew it was super slow. So I go out, charge out into my second lap. The first part of it goes well. Go back into the woods, and it's worse. Like, there's more water, there's more mud. I mean, I couldn't believe it. Like, the stuff was coming out of the ground like this aquifer of water was just pouring out into the woods, and the mud was getting deeper and crazier. And it's just a crazy fest now, man. I'm all over the place, bouncing, pinging off of trees. And I come to this one section that had this gnarly, kind of rocky, greasy step-up thing at the end of it, and I'm going at it, and there's this rider stuck in a line to the left. I'm like, well, okay, but I'm like, okay, but the line that I had taken the lap before, the greasy, rocky thing, was still open, so I'm like, I'm just going to go. Well, these people are like walking down to help that person, and they're waving me off. I'm like, what do you mean? And I stop, and they're like, back up, you got to back up. I'm like, first of all, we're racing motorcycles. What do you mean back up? Second of all, I'm in like 6 inches of mud. Backing a motorcycle up in 6 inches of mud is not really all that easy to do. So they won't get out of my way because they're helping that rider. And I'm like, this is freaking nuts. So I'm yanking the thing back. I finally try to aim it up this bank. I can't get it's stupid. I mean, just it's indescribable what I'm trying to do with this motorcycle. My hands now, I've fallen down, like as I'm trying to back it up, fall in the mud, put my hands in the mud, get back up. I try to grab the grips. I'm trying to turn the throttle to start the bike, and it's slipping. I can't, it's ridiculous, right? Finally get the bike out of that thing with some help from other riders. They super duper nice guys came and helped me get the thing out of there. Get going. I'm like, okay, take it easy. I don't know how long I was stuck there, probably 15 minutes. I don't know. It was forever. It felt like forever. Get going. Now I'm completely zonked, right, physically, because I'm just not in that great a shape. And pulling and pushing on muddy motorcycles is really hard on you, especially when you're 44 years old with a bad hip. And so I get going. I get some other, and I crash. I'm up. I crash. I'm up. I get stuck. I get unstuck. Come back out. Long story, actually, short story, really long. My second lap is in like an hour and something, right? It's just stupid. Like, stupid. And I'm overheating the bike during the second lap and thinking to myself, I just got to finish this lap and just stop because I'm going to ruin the motorcycle. It's not going to be good. I'm not really having any fun right now. But I get done with the lap, and I come around, and the flagger at the start-finish is like, you got one more lap. He's waving the white flag. I'm like, wait. And because I'm not a quitter, and my children are there, they're watching. I don't want to be a quitter in front of them. So I'm like, all right. So I take off. I go. Turns out I'm like one of the last guys they let through for a final lap. I go, and I get back in the woods. And amazingly enough, it's worse. The mud is worse. It's deeper. The ruts are deeper. It's absolutely, like, I really can't describe it. I really can't, especially if you're from the West like I am. It's not like anything we ride out here. And yes, I am from Oklahoma, but I never rode motorcycles when I was in Oklahoma. So like the only time I've ever ridden that far east is when I go back for this race. So I get into it. I get stuck. I fall down. I get stuck. I fall down. I get stuck. so many times that it starts to become I can't count, right? I'm miserable, right? I can't lift the bike up anymore. There are numerous times I'm sitting there looking at my motorcycle. I'm standing in calf-deep mud. The bike is augured into mud up to the cases and maybe past, and I don't know how to get it out. Like, it's hydraulically locked in the mud. When you try to pull on it, it like, and hold, anyway. So I finally am like, this is just the dumbest thing I've ever done in my life. No joke, I have a conversation with God. I said, God, please help me get this motorcycle out of these woods, because there's no one coming. The sweep guy isn't coming. There's no one else on course. I'm all by myself. So I pray to God to please help me get this motorcycle out of these holes. And miraculously, I do. I get the thing out over and over again. But in doing that, I'm revving the bike. The radiators are covered in mud. And it's overheating and boiling Evans coolant. So Evans coolant doesn't boil to like 375 degrees. So it's hot. And if you haven't watched the video that I put up a couple videos back about what's inside our 250 Daisy, you need to do that, because that's what it looks like when you get done doing this to it. But by the grace of God, the motorcycle kept running, and it kept pulling itself out of these holes after I don't know how many hours it felt like. And I finally got out. I finished the lap. They'd shut timing and scoring down. Like, timing and scoring was closed. Everybody was gone. I came to the finish line. There's no one there. No flags, no nothing. I went and found the scoring guys. I'm like, yeah, I want my third lap counted. They didn't count it, by the way. So it was the craziest thing I've ever done. It was an experience, though. You know, at the time, I was pretty upset. Like, I was like, I'm ruining this motorcycle. I'm breaking everything. I can't believe this. I don't want any part of this. Anyways, it's just not stoked, right? And I finished. I got 5th because everybody else quit. It was behind me. And anyway, it was just silly. And the guys in front of me, my hat is off. To everybody who went fast in that, I can't even understand how that happens. I'm blown away, and I'm just in awe of the guys that absolutely kicked my butt in that mud. So good job, everybody who whipped up on me. But here again, here's a little point of reference. So normally in that race, the 2-hour race, I usually get 6 to 7 laps because it's a 2-hour plus a lap. The pros are always on the 8-lap mark because they're flying. The guy who overalled it got 5 laps, and he was the only one to get 5 laps. Everybody else was 4, 3, 2, 1, and then 0. So it was nuts. Unfortunately, that damage to the motorcycle led me to not be able to race the next day. Normally Sunday is a team race or an Ironman race. Bike was done. I was done. I called it. I'm like, we're going home. So we left a little early, got home a little early. Kind of tail tucked between my legs, heading back to Colorado on that one. But it was awesome. Honestly, looking back now, it's been about a week. I can say honestly that it was awesome. I'm stoked that I went. I'm stoked that I suffered through it. I'm stoked that I persevered through the mud and the craziness and got the final lap, even though it didn't count. Because, you know, that's what life's all about. Life is all about, like, finding your passion, doing it, even though sometimes it totally sucks. So I'm happy. It worked out. It was great. I can't wait to go back next year. I hope it's not so muddy. That would be better. But even if it is, I'm still going, and I'm still going to give it all I got. So there you go. Thanks for joining me for story time. I'm going to keep doing these story time videos, I think. I'm going to make a story time playlist for you guys. I think the next story I'm going to tell is about the time I soloed the Baja 1000 in 2006. So if you want to hear that story, make sure you hit the subscribe button and get the notification bell clicked, because that's a pretty fantastic story too. Another one that I can't even believe I pulled off. Thanks guys so much. I really appreciate you watching these things. It means the absolute world to me that you pay attention to my stuff. Thank you so much for all the shares and the help. The YouTube channel is growing really well and really fast for us, so thank you so much. I just hope you get out, you spread the gospel of two wheels, and I really just want you guys to go ride your dirt bikes!